I'm 19, and in my first year of college, still figuring life out, when something happened that flipped my entire world upside down. I come from a small town where everyone knows each other, and secrets don't stay hidden for long, or at least that's what I thought. I moved into the dorms 3 months ago, excited to finally be independent. My roommate, Hannah, seemed perfect at first. Outgoing, funny, the type of girl who instantly makes friends everywhere she goes. I was grateful, honestly, because I'm not that type. I'm quieter, more reserved. Being around her made it easier to fit in. Things were normal for classes, late-night study sessions, parties here and there. But one weekend, when Hannah went home to visit her family, I stayed behind. That's when I found something that still makes my stomach twist every time I think about it. I'd been looking for my charger in her drawer because she usually, and that's when I found a small black note. It was tucked under her clothes like she didn't want anyone to see it. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear. But the second I opened it, I froze. Inside were pages and pages filled with names. Dozens of them. Some were classmates, some professors. This is where it gets weird. Some were my mom, my cousin, even my younger brother's name. Next to every name, Hannah had written notes. Specific details that only someone close to those private things, embarrassing secrets, even things I think anyone else in the world knew about. My hands were shaking so badly I had to put the notebook. I told myself I was imagining that maybe it was just a weird game or some kind of creative writing project, but the longer I stared at it, the more I realized that there was too much accuracy, too much detail. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to figure out how Hannah could know so much about me, and about people she'd never even met. And then something even stranger happened the next morning. When Hannah came back, she walked into our dorm with that same black notebook in her hands. But the one I had found was still under her clothes in the drawer. I froze when I saw the notebook in Hannah's hands. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure she could hear it. She tossed it casually onto her desk like it was nothing important, then started unpacking snacks and clothes from her bag, as if she hadn't just walked in holding the exact same thing I'd found the day before. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd imagined the first notebook. Maybe I was so exhausted that I'd convinced myself I saw something that wasn't there. But later that night, when she went to shower, I checked her drawer again, and sure enough, the original notebook was still there, hidden under her clothes exactly where I'd left it. 2 identical notebooks. I wanted to confront her right then, but something about the way she looked at me when she came out of the bathroom stopped me cold. Her eyes lingered on me longer than usual, like she was trying to read my thoughts. I forced a smile, pretended to be on my phone, but I could feel it, the suspicion radiating off her. That night, I barely slept again. I kept listening for the sound of pages turning, and I swear, just after midnight, I heard her whispering softly. It was like she was reading aloud, almost chanting. I couldn't make out the words, but it gave me chills. The next morning, I woke up to find my phone on the floor across the room. I always keep it plugged in by my bed, but the cord was still in the wall, just dangling, unplugged. I asked Hannah if she'd moved it, and she shrugged, saying maybe I knocked it over in my sleep. I knew I hadn't. Later that day, I called my mom just to hear her voice. She sounded different, tired, distracted, and when I asked her what was wrong, she said she hadn't been sleeping well, that she kept waking up from strange dreams where someone was whispering her name. My blood ran cold, because the night before, I could have sworn I heard Hannah whispering mine. I couldn't shake it. The whispers, the notebooks, my mom's strange dreams. It all felt connected, but I didn't know how. I told myself I was being paranoid, that stress was getting the better of me, but then things started happening that I couldn't explain away. The first was my cousin. She called me out of the blue, asking if I'd told anyone about something that happened when we were kids. It was something deeply private, something I'd never spoken about to anyone, not even my mom. I swore I hadn't, but she didn't believe me. She said someone had sent her a message about it from an anonymous account, worded in a way that made it clear they knew everything. The second was my professor. He pulled me aside after class and quietly asked me not to talk to other students about his personal life. I had no idea what he was talking about, but he insisted that someone close to me has been spreading things I didn't even know until then. And then came the third, something I'll never forget. I woke up one morning to find a folded piece of paper slipped under my pillow. My stomach dropped when I opened it and saw my own name written at the top in Hannah's handwriting. Underneath were 3 short sentences. You will fail your next exam. You will lose a friend. You will not sleep tonight. My hands shook as I read it over and over. I told myself it was a prank, that maybe she thought it was funny. But that same day, I got a call from my high school best friend saying she couldn't keep in touch anymore. No explanation, just a cold goodbye. That afternoon, I failed a quiz I'd studied hard for, and when night came, no matter how exhausted I couldn't close my eyes without hearing faint whispers just outside my door. And here's the part that scared me most. The next morning, the paper was gone. By this point, I was living in a constant state of paranoia. Every time Hannah left the room, I searched through her things, hoping to find some kind of explanation. But aside from those notebooks, there was nothing unusual. No letters, no strange objects, nothing that screamed, "This is why." The notebooks were the key. I became obsessed with them. I waited until Hannah left for class one day and pulled both out, side by side, and that's when I noticed something I hadn't before. They weren't identical. The first notebook, the one I'd found in her drawer, was filled with names and details, secrets that people wouldn't want exposed. But the second one, the one she carried around with her, was different. It had dates, predictions. Some were scribbled out, others had check marks beside them, like a to-do list. I flipped through page after page, my heart racing. Most of the predictions were small. Sarah will lose her wallet. Professor L will cancel class. But then, toward the back, I saw my own name again. Next to it were 3 sentences. She will see what she shouldn't. She will tell no one. She will disappear. The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. I shoved the notebooks back into place, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped them. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything. Every time Hannah looked at me, smiled at me, laughed at something in class, all I could think about was that last line. That night, I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. I called my cousin Tessa, the only person I trusted enough to tell. I whispered everything into the phone, every detail, every suspicion, every page I'd read. She was quiet for a long time before finally saying she'd come to visit me that weekend. Relief washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. But then, just before midnight, something happened that made my blood turn cold. I got a text from an unknown number. Just 5 words. Why did you tell her? My stomach dropped when I read the message. I hadn't told anyone except Tessa, and she swore she wouldn't say a word. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I checked the number, but it wasn't saved in my contacts. No name, no photo, just a string of digits I didn't recognize. I wanted to believe it was some kind of coincidence, maybe even a wrong number, but deep down, I knew better. The timing was too perfect. Someone knew I'd broken the silence. I didn't reply. I shoved my phone under my pillow and forced myself to breathe, counting each inhale and exhale until I finally drifted off. But when I woke up the next morning, the message was gone. Not in my inbox, not in my deleted folder. It was like it had never been sent. That day dragged on endlessly. I couldn't stop watching Hannah out of the corner of my eye. She acted normal, laughing with friends, scribbling notes in class, humming while she got ready for bed. But it felt like an act, like every move she made was rehearsed. When I called Tessa later, I didn't even have to explain. She told me she'd already booked a bus ticket and would be here Friday. I clung to that promise like a lifeline. Just a few more days, and I wouldn't be trapped with Hannah anymore. But Hannah must have sensed something was off, because that night she asked me if I was mad at her. She tilted her head, studying me in this way that made my skin crawl, like she could see right through me. I forced a smile, told her I was just tired, but I don't think she believed me. When I climbed into bed, I tried to distract myself with music. I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember was waking up to the sound of my drawer opening. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just listened as the papers shuffled. A minute later, I heard the quiet scrape of the notebook sliding back into place. The next morning, when Hannah left for class, I checked. Both notebooks were still there, but mine wasn't. The one with my name on the page, it was gone. The missing notebook haunted me all day. I couldn't focus on classes, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. Every time Hannah glanced at me, I wondered if she knew I'd noticed, if she was waiting for me to bring it up, or maybe she was daring me to. By evening, I was a wreck. I kept checking my drawer over and over, as if the notebook would magically reappear. It never did. That night, when Hannah went out with friends, I searched the entire room. I tore through her desk, her closet, even under her mattress. Nothing. No notebook, no loose papers. Nothing that could explain where it had gone. But I did find something else. Tucked inside her pillowcase was a Polaroid photo. My breath caught when I realized it was of me, sleeping in my bed. The photo was recent. My hair was the same way I'd worn it just the night before. I dropped it like it burned. My mind was spinning. Why would she take a picture of me sleeping? How many more were there? When Hannah came back, I pretended to be asleep, heart pounding as she moved around the room, but I couldn't keep my eyes shut for long. Around 2 a.m., I heard her whispering again. Not chanting this time, not reading, just whispering my name over and over, so soft I thought maybe I was dreaming. Then came the scrape of something sliding under my bed. I didn't dare move until morning. When Hannah left for class, I dropped to the floor and looked. There it was, the missing notebook. But when I pulled it out, I saw something new written on the page under my name. 2 days left. I sat on the floor with the notebook in my lap, staring at those 3 words until they blurred together. 2 days left. Left for what? I wanted to rip the page out, burn it, throw the whole thing away. But some part of me was terrified that if I destroyed it, I'd never know what was coming. I shoved it into my backpack instead and carried it with me all day, too scared to leave it behind. Every time I looked at Hannah, my chest tightened. She was her usual self, laughing with friends in the cafeteria, walking across campus like she didn't have a care in the world. but I couldn't stop seeing those words burned into my mind. By evening, I cracked. I called Tessa and told her everything. The photo, the notebook, the message. Her voice went quiet on the other end, and then she said she was moving her trip up. She'd be here the next night, not Friday. That should have made me feel better, but it didn't. If anything, it made the countdown feel more real. That night, I tucked the notebook under my mattress, not wanting Hannah to see I had it. I thought it was hidden well enough, but when I woke up in the morning, it wasn't there. In its place was another folded piece of paper. I unfolded it with shaking hands. "You can't stop it," that was all it said. And when I looked up, Hannah was already awake, sitting at her desk, smiling at me like nothing was wrong. The paper felt like it was burning in my hand. I shoved it into my pocket before Hannah could see me staring at it, though I was certain she already knew. She glanced back at her notebook, scribbling something down, humming under her breath like she always did. Carefree, calm, like she wasn't terrifying me piece by piece. I kept telling myself just one more night. Tessa would be here tomorrow. I just had to make it through one more night. But the hours dragged on like days. Every sound made me jump. Every time Hannah looked at me, my heart pounded. That evening, I pretended to study while keeping one eye on her. She spent most of the night writing in her notebook, flipping pages so fast I couldn't tell if she was even reading what she wrote. At one point, she stopped, stared at me. No smile, no expression, just stared. I forced myself not to look away, but it felt like a battle I couldn't win. After a long, unbearable silence, she finally closed the notebook and went to bed without saying a word. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Around 3 a.m., I heard the faint click of my drawer again. My breath caught in my throat, but this time, I didn't pretend. I sat up slowly, and in the dim glow from outside, I saw her standing there. She was holding the notebook. Not hers. The one with my name. The one that had disappeared and reappeared over and over. She didn't say a word. Didn't even move for a moment. Then, as if she'd been waiting for me to wake up, she smiled and whispered, "One day left." I didn't move. I couldn't. Hannah stood there with that notebook clutched to her chest, smiling like we were sharing some kind of private joke. Then, without another word, she slid it back into the drawer and climbed into her bed like nothing had happened. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. She was asleep. I sat frozen for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying those 3 words in my head. One day left. The next morning, I packed a small bag and kept it by my bed. I told myself that if anything felt off, I'd leave and stay in the library until Tessa arrived. I didn't care if I had to sit there all night. I just needed to get out of that room. But Hannah was different that day. She was almost sweet. She offered me her coffee, asked about my classes, even invited me to join her and some friends for dinner. It was unsettling. Like she knew I was afraid and wanted me to drop my guard. I almost did. By evening, my phone buzzed. It was Tessa. Bus delayed. Won't be there until tomorrow afternoon. My chest tightened. That meant one more night. One more night alone with Hannah. I decided to stay awake no matter what. I sat at my desk with my laptop open, pretending to study, fighting the urge to close my eyes. Around midnight, Hannah rolled over and asked if I was okay. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I mumbled something about having a big assignment due. She didn't press, but then she said something that made every muscle in my body lock up. "Don't worry, you'll be gone before she gets here." The moment those words left her lips, my blood ran cold. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at my laptop screen, while every instinct screamed at me to run. But I didn't move. If I showed fear, I thought she'd win. Hours crawled by. Hannah eventually stopped shifting in bed, and her breathing slowed, but I didn't trust it. I kept my eyes on the clock until the sun finally started to rise. The second she left for class, I grabbed my bag and ran. I didn't go to the library. I went straight to campus security. I poured everything out. The notebooks, the photos, the whispers, the notes under my pillow. I even handed over the paper that said 2 days left and you can't stop it. The officer looked at me like he didn't know whether to believe me, but when I mentioned the Polaroid of me sleeping, that got his attention. He asked me to wait while he called for someone else. 2 hours later, I was in the dean's office. They had already searched Hannah's side of the room. They found the notebooks. All of them. Not just the 2 I'd seen, dozens more. Each filled with names, secrets, and predictions. Some of the details were so private, so personal, that people had no idea how she could possibly know them, and the Polaroids weren't just of me. There were pictures of other students too, dozens of them, taken while they slept. Hannah never came back to our dorm. I don't know what the school did, or if she was arrested, but I know I never saw her again. Tessa finally arrived that afternoon, panicked and ready to fight, but by then it was over. At least, that's what I thought. A week later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. Me, sitting at the dean's office that day. On the back, in familiar handwriting, were 3 words. Not over yet.